are you?
I'm well, thank you. Great. Out in nature, loving it. Looking at the astrology. We've got let me touch on that for a minute.
Please give it
We
to
got
us.
we got a new moon coming up on the 23rd in Sagittarius. And the same day, within minutes, Jupiter's stationing to go direct. So on this new moon, it's really recommended to set your intentions and aim, make it big. Make it big because Jupiter's involved. And, Jupiter, when a planet goes stations, whether direct or retrograde, in this case, it's direct, it's super powerful. And, with Jupiter, it's like go big or go home kind of energy.
What would you
So
recommend to set? How would you set your intentions exactly?
you
Like,
can,
what would you
you
recommend?
can, you can do it as a thought form. You can state it out loud. You can, write it down. There's
Specific, like, let me be successful with money, or let me get
Well,
this new.
specifically, if you want, to launch a project, if you want to, yeah, make money, whatever it is. But obviously, it depends where it falls on your chart. For it's the time to set the intention, but you won't see the fruition of it until the Sagittarius full moon in the summer, which is like around the end of mid to end June of next year. Um, Next year is going to be super different than the fuckery that we've been experiencing over the last few years. Because Pluto's going into Aquarius, Jupiter's going into Aries, and Saturn is going into Pisces. So it's going to be a totally different vibe next year for the better. May looks really good for the financial world across the board, globally and personally. So yeah, man, this new moon on the 23rd, guys, dream and dream big, and even if you don't, you think, it's out of reach, or it seems, like too much to accomplish or something, set the intention, and it'll start,
You can do it.
obviously you have to work towards it, but like I said, it'll take a span of about 6 or 7 months before you see it all come to culmination. So
Limitless,
yeah.
and really unlock who you are.
Yeah,
What looking?
don't think small with Jupiter. Think
Just
big.
go for it, man.
Yeah.
Who are you? Like, what? Where's your information come? Where's your firmware come from? Where does your paradigms come from? This is all. This channel has, from the day, from layer zero, has always been about challenging paradigms and not changing one for another. Who are you? What do you want? Who are you listening to? Where do you get your information from? Huh? Shout out
Speaking
Beastie
of,
Boys.
speaking of, this is also a really good time. The next couple of weeks, all these planets that are in Sag now, Mercury, Venus, the Sun, and something else is in there now. I can't think of it right now, but all these planets are going to be squaring Neptune in a couple weeks, within the next couple weeks.
Boom.
So there's
Wild
going to
card.
be again some cloudiness. Neptune is involved, and they're going to be opposing Mars retrograde in Gemini.
I mean, like, Ani.
So go
Oh,
ahead.
I apologize. Forgive me if I interrupt. I'm sorry.
So it's a good time to seek your own inner intuition, like your own
Dude,
answers,
I think
more
everything is about
more
internal.
than listening to others or astrology or anything. These next couple weeks, I mean, it's always the case that way, but it's super super important to do it within the next couple weeks because of that Neptune squaring all those planets in Sagittarius, and then things will kind of clear up. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's and also,
Uh-oh.
Jupiter going direct, like this is the last brush it has with Neptune. So I mean, I don't know if you guys have been having a lot of crazy dreams lately, but the dream world is super intense lately.
De Havilland has been. I know that.
And you can get, a lot of answers, even if it's symbolic, like you can kind of like decipher what you're receiving. But it's definitely a good time to go within, you know, like I said, within the next couple weeks to get your own answers, and just quiet the mind and see what you get. Don't judge it. Don't try to reason it away. Just let it come as it comes. And
You know,
all these planets in Sag now really give us like a big boost of energy. Like, people might start experiencing wanting to get active and like physically active and do a lot of stuff that, we haven't been able to do in a while. Like travel and all things Sagittarius, expanding the mind, higher knowledge. And higher knowledge doesn't necessarily mean higher education like in the
oh,
traditional,
of course not. Who?
university kind of level. um but just, yeah, expanding one's consciousness, expanding everything, because again, that's what Jupiter represents. So all these,
Expanding.
Jupiter rules Sagittarius. So
You
um
know, uh,
once
keep
it
going.
goes once it goes into Aries, yeah, there's going to be a lot of good stuff coming in, because Jupiter loves being in Aries. And for any early Sag placements, in other words, if you're Sagittarius sun and you were born during the first few days of Sagittarius, this is going to be like extra beneficial. Or if you have any planets there, I have Mercury at 3 degrees. So like 0 to 3 degrees, any planets that you have in Sagittarius, it's going to be like extra good. So again, guys, set your intentions, the 23rd, which is the new moon.
Yeah, 23rd. Set your intentions. Like, do your rituals. Cast your
I
spells.
got a couple things to say about it.
Get them.
All right, first of all, there's two ways of looking at this, because the collective, as he's talking about, is the consensus reality, the go along to get along kind of reality. But there's also a collective consciousness that stems from our unconscious, that are collective thought forms that we have. So that's being manipulated, as we know, both consciously and unconsciously, by the self appointed overlords and, the bullshit that everyone is fed 24/7. So yeah, when you rise above that and you see through it, you're no longer part of that consensus reality. But because this is a dual universe, and that's another thing I want to talk about, duality's been turned into a bad thing. Again, through misinformation, through veering the public into having to pick sides. But the truth is, this is a dual universe. Everything is composed of positive, negative, male, female, day, night, light, dark. As long as we're in the physical realm and you're, physically dense, duality is a reality, guys. And that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It's just been turned into a bad thing through lack of understanding, through disinformation, misinformation. And that's what keeps us stuck, you know? The middle path and finding a way to integrate both, hence working on one's shadow, you know, which again, most people don't want to go there because it's difficult and it's painful and it takes humility and setting ego aside. But really, that is the only way to evolve. There's no way around it. Anything else is spiritual bypass. And that's what will eventually speed us up on an atomic level, where we're no longer bound solely by the physical. So, you know, in terms of, what he's talking about, empty caverns underneath, yes, there are quote empty caverns from our perspective, from our limited perception. But I can tell you, there is life in myriad forms, whether humanoidish or otherwise energetic, in every sphere, in every dimension on this planet. And again, because we're 3D and we're physical, all we see are other 3D physical entities normally. Once you start tuning into more, and part of the reason why all these other say the reptilians and all of these different consciousness are coming into awareness is because people are evolving. So things are coming into view. Things that have always been in front of us that we haven't seen before. So the more you expand your consciousness, the more you tap into, the more we begin to perceive. But that doesn't mean we're understanding it properly. And I just want to make that super clear. Because even with the reptilians, duality plays a role there too. There's the evil ones and there are good ones as well that do live underground. I've been shown. And they have the ability to teleport through tunnels underground. And in some respects they're kind of more evolved than we are because they've been here longer. But on the other hand, again, because duality is not a paradox. We see duality as a paradox. They're part and parcel of the same thing. It's just because, again, atomically we're slowed down, so we see that split as two different things. But really, on the other side, it's all one. It's not black or white. Say it's gray. Metaphorically speaking.
I told you, Maggie. I was like, you get uncomfortable with love, right? He's like, I don't need love.
Yeah, that was a good time. The only thing that was missing was Ani.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. I was getting ready to migrate.
Well, look at her vibing now. Look at her tonight. Magic. Can you not see a difference about Ani tonight? Like, she's on fire.
It does seem like she has a little bit of relief in her aura.
She's dialed in tonight. She goes, hey guys, let me talk about duality. Let me talk about powerful beings, astrology. She's dialed in.
The energy where I was at was taking a toll.
It's nothing like being around nature, that's for sure.
Which talks about what this guy's talking about being affected by our environment. Because even as we continue evolving and we're above that consensus collective, mentality, we rise above it. But if it's around you, it's still going to have an effect because you're constantly energetically trying to keep it, away, right? I wanted to talk about timelines for a minute. This is another thing. My work is about time and how time has all the answers. All answers are found in time, literally. I hear people talk about timelines a lot, and I get a little cringy because based on, again, what I've been shown about time, in our reality, there's one continuum of time. What makes it appear like different timelines is, again, as we spill over into more, our consciousness spills over into more. As we speed up atomically, because this is what when you make new synapses through the neurotransmitters in your brain.
Get them, Ani.
This begins to speed us up atomically. So what happens is, in the same timeline, the same continuum, you jump ahead and no longer have to deal with certain particulars of that point in time space. So it's really the same timeline, just different experiences. And you think, well, how can reality be so different if it's the same continuum? It has to do with perception. It has to do with us speeding up. And it has to do with not having to experience certain things that we would have otherwise had to experience in that other timeline. It's the same timeline. The thing is that energy consciousness is instilled with dynamic adaptability. So that has to do with how we create our reality. I've literally seen, okay, here we go. We're composed of an infinite amount of, how can I explain it? That thing that's like people have like in their offices. It's kind of like from the 80s where it's made of a bunch of little like tubes, and if you press your hand in it, the impression like comes out. We're composed of that. When you look at your skin, it was just, what looks like a matrix. It was described to me as a reticulum. So the reticulum, before you move your arm, the consciousness already starts manifesting ahead and in front, and that's what creates the movement, by each individual rod working in harmony together, or in unison. So that has to do with, experiencing a different point in that continuum of time. It's the same continuum, it's just different points of it. It's not like there's a timeline. The other timelines are actually being experienced by other consciousnesses interdimensionally that are here around us that we don't see. That's a different timeline. That's another timeline, say, for, different type of consciousness. But we humans are I'm telling you this, and once my work is out, it'll make a lot more sense. We are traveling through the same continuum of time, only experiencing based on our understanding, our perception, and how much we expand that, and how much we can encompass. Because again, the more we expand, the more we understand, the more we spill out, so to speak, and experience much more of any point in that continuum. So that's what jumps us ahead. It's ultimately our consciousness.
There's one thing in there I heard I need to ask you about, Ani.
Yeah.
You said once my work is out, do you have plans to release anything I should know about?
Yeah, I'm going to start putting, now with the new moon, because I had to get in the right headspace. Again, I was in a location that was like
Sure.
asylum. So it took a toll. So I've been talking about this for a while, and I'm just going to start putting out bits of the info. And ultimately, the thing is, when I wrote all this stuff down as I was getting it, I worked on it for 7 years. Initially, I thought it was one book. And then I was like, okay, this looks more like 3 books because it's like too much. And, when I handed over the manuscript to a publisher, they're like, this is 5 books. So
Wow.
It's a lot, guys. It's a lot. It's all about our consciousness, how it manifests time and space, how everything is consciousness, and how our consciousness is like a speck, like a branching out of God source energy, manifested and slowed down into the myriad life forms that we experience, whether it's nature, our own unique individual selves. We're all like, we had to come as the many to understand that there's no separation, because it's the many that compose the one. So yeah, to answer your question, yeah, I'm gonna start putting out info starting with the new moon.
Yeah, we're gonna fund it. We're gonna fund it ourselves. We're gonna self-publish it because
I really don't want to self-publish. I've worked so much on this that the last thing I want to do is more work to self-publish. But
yeah.
I submitted to publishers many years ago, and they didn't know what to do with it. They didn't know how to market it. I got as far as submitting.
Yeah.
I would get responses to my query letters and my submitting the chapters and stuff when I thought it was one book, but it was so much that I got, from the big publishing houses like Simon and Schuster. I aimed high. I went for the big ones first, and I got
Yeah.
rejection letters based on they didn't know how to market it, because it's like nothing anybody's ever seen before. So, yeah, if I have to self-publish, I'll self-publish, but I need to start putting out the info, in bits and pieces out, in video form. My dream would be to do a bookumentary, where it's like a documentary and a book at the same time, because this lends itself to like CGI, like animation, to show the movement of everything from the Big Bang to or what we know as the Big Bang, to the planets, to the cells. It shows the continuum from the galactic to the planetary, the solar systematic, to the planetary, to the life forms here, to the cellular, to the molecules, atoms. Like the continuum goes that way too. And based on our limited 10% consciousness, which is all we pick up on, we see everything as separate. But like between us, the space between is not a void. Just like when we look out into space, it's not a void. And here's the ratio. When we look out into space, 10% is matter, are the planets, the stars, the nebulas, all the stuff. 90% is black space. just like our consciousness. We perceive 10% of what's there. But in between, we don't see the movement of how everything is the same thing at different points in existence, morphing and metamorphosizing and metamorphosizing. So yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot, but it's funny because it sounds super complex, and the explanation can seem a little complex. That's why the illustrations and ideally, you know, computerized
What,
stuff to
Ani,
show it.
what do you think about toroidal fields? Torus fields and toroidal fields.
Explain toroidal fields.
By like two bulls, two Tauruses.
A toroidal field is like a spiral pattern, but it almost forms like a sphere. Like picture an orange.
Everything is that.
Yeah, exactly. There's nothing but torus. Yeah, Santos talks about this a lot. Everything is all torus and parabolas.
Everything's a spiral.
Parabols. Yep.
And everything comes through a black hole. That's what your belly button is.
Yep.
Everything has a black hole in the center. You know, you were birthed out of a black hole. You came out of a black hole, initially a sperm, into a black hole.
The portal.
You formed in the void of space, which is the womb.
Yep.
You came out of that black hole to live on another black hole. The gravity is not gravity. It's a black hole in the center. Everything. That's what keeps everything here. Yep. And that you see on two sides is also because everything's a duality. Like Earth has its dual planet.
This goes all the way around. This goes all the way around too.
Yeah, yeah. But there's also a duality to it, you know. And that center point that you see, how everything comes in through that.
Yeah.
That's how consciousness comes in.
Yeah.
Through the heart, the center chakra.
The center, yeah.
Yeah, I wish.
But it's actually our belly button, because that's what sustained us when we were in the womb. And it's funny because, you know, we see, like when you see an ovum that it gets penetrated by the sperm, we see it as splitting into different cells. But what's actually happening is those cells are getting sucked in through the black hole. That's the belly button. But because of our limited perception, we see it as splitting and splitting and splitting. But it's not splitting. It's sucking in energy manifested on the cellular level into density. Because to come into the physical realm, you have to travel a portal, and the portal is a black hole. Black holes aren't only an exit point, they're also an entry point. You can call them wormholes, or you can call them whatever, but yeah. And even the way we see the planet isn't the way the planet looks. It looks more like that. It's like a slice of something bigger.
Bet.
And we come in through tubes. It's like a tube. That's that tunnel that everybody sees when they die.
Yep.
That connects us to source. That's what keeps us connected to the other side, to God's source.